Either we are together or not together. The message unapea wa Kenya. Unaenda Mombasa, you want some communities are being isolated because of issues of land. Unaenda unaelezea hiyo. Truth be told, the issues that are being discussed now will be resisted. We shall resist. Hatutakubali division in this country. We are not going to allow any leader to take us back 15, 20 years ago.
The politics of dividing Kenyans so that you can use the divisions, the political divisions for your 2022 campaigns, that we will oppose during the day, in broad daylight, at night, tukilala, tukiamka.
Kura ni ya wananchi. Ukitaka kuomba kiti mahali popote, omba upewe, na hiyo ndo haki ya kikatiba. Mambo ya kugawa wa Kenya, kurudi kwa kabila tumekata.
Naomba tu kwa heshima wale wanasiasa wanafanya siasa ya BBI, tusitumie tukawawanya wananchi, tukaleta chuki na kuleta mgawanyiko.
We will stop Raila Odinga from dividing this country along ethnic lines. We will not accept, and it will not happen in this nation.
Okay, so those are the leaders that accompany the Deputy President, and they are saying that they will stop whatever was happening in Narok. They will not accept it. There's another bite that will play of the Deputy President. But before we do that, so there's that concern about what communities want and what they are defending versus the nation. How do we how do we reconcile all these issues so that, yes, we have to defend the individual rights of the communities, but at the same time, looking at the nation, which the BBI was essentially meant to be looking forward to?
First of all, Senator Ledama was defending his community. And he had all the right, because he was elected, to defend his people. What I find may have been the problem is also a member of a political party called ODM with a manifesto. And we all know the manifesto of ODM. The manifesto of ODM is a manifesto of divisive politics. In 2007, they used divisive politics of 41 against 1. In 2013, they used 40 versus 2. So when you see some of these things come out, it is because of the manifesto you believe in. If Ledama today, and I think it will be pretty very soon, defect to Jubilee and now start conforming himself with the Jubilee manifesto, where there is somebody by the name, the late Honorable Gearbox Omondi, who was an MCA in Katondo, elected, and is a Luo, and he was called Gearbox because he was just a mere mechanic. Because Katondo, is it Kawa? Yes. Kawa. Yes. Now you can imagine, yes, it was just a mere mechanic. He was not from that particular community. Probably they make up 2% of the communities that are there. But because of his leadership skill, he was been able to be elected. So if today Ledama defect to Jubilee and follow the Jubilee manifesto, I'm telling you, then you will be probably not talking about ethnic profile.
How certain are you? Because Honorable Loch has already said that he does not agree with some of the things that he said. How then do you attribute that to
I know he's hiding. He's hiding. You know, that's why he was saying, Loch was saying that we are very quick in picking certain issues. It's as if this country is a country where there are people who are always correct, and that we cannot be able to say no, because BBI is a conversation. It's a dialogue.
Is it true?
It is for me to agree.
Honorable Sankok, is it true that there are issues of land and political representation in Narok and Kajiado County?
Yes, exactly.
How best should they be addressed?
There is a TGRC report. Ours was that it should be implemented. And, you know, we find a very good formula of probably even implementing some of these historical land justice. For instance, historically, Nairobi belonged to the Maasai. If Nairobi belonged to the Maasai, the buildings here, the businesses are yours, but the land is ours. So we can easily find a formula where the land rates are paid to Narok, Kajiado, and Samburu County government, and then we solve.
No, Honorable Sankok, are you?
Here's the thing, Honorable Sankok, just 1 minute. Here's the thing, Honorable Sankok. From this specific discussion that was happening in Narok,
yes,
the community had opposed the regional government, which came up during the Mombasa rally. But some of the leaders have called on the return of the community land, and we're going to come back to that issue of land, and you've also talked about it. Here's the thing. The community then proposed a rotational of presidency. That way, large and small communities can be able to be promoted. Inclusivity is one of the things that is also inside BBI. Do you think if we did a rotation of presidency, this would help? It would help with the mechanism of inclusivity.
My sister,
Especially
I gave you my version. And the version of total inclusivity is the creation of a very powerful position of a prime minister with 2 deputies.
Ole Sankok, this is what is coming from the Mark community. They don't want regional governments, but they're saying, let's have a rotational presidency for inclusivity. This is the Mark people.
Yes, of course. And what we agreed, apart from the rotational presidency,
yes,
we agreed that any nation is defined by landmass and population. We have for a long time used population to elect our leaders.
Yes.
We want now to say 1 kilometer, one vote, or 1 acre, 1 vote. So that we also use, because a country is not defined by population alone. A country is defined by the landmass together with the population. But we have been using population alone to do our election. We now need to do, and that is what we meant by rotational leadership. Rotational leadership meaning whoever is elected from a vast constituency will carry electoral college more votes than that is what we
Okay, of course that would mean a lot of changes to the constitution. But first, before I get to you, Senator Kajwang, let's listen to what William Ruto and his colleagues were saying yesterday at a meeting. I believe that was Embu. Let's just listen in.
If the reggae is what we are seeing, the ethnicity that is being preached in BBI rallies, and the ethnic profiling of communities, and the hate and the campaign one community against another, if that is the reggae they are talking about, my friends, reggae will stop.
Tunashindwa kuelewa how we can finance a meeting to profile the 2 large communities that voted for this government to a man. Na hii BBI isipoangaliwa takuja kuleta shida kwa Kenya hii yetu.
There is no Kenyan who will kneel down before anyone ndio aitikizwe kufanya biashara pahali, kukaa pahali, ama kukipigania kiti pahali fulani.
Na tungependa sisi tuunge mkono BBI, lakini hao ambao wanagawanyisha Wakenya tunawajua, na hata wakitaka hizo vitu wanataka hatutawapatia.
Okay, so the reggae will stop, but let's step back a little bit, Senator Kajwang. So we were told that the agenda is to deal with 9 issues that have bedeviled this country since independence. And we were told that there will be a validation task force that is already going on with its work. The chairman is Senator of Garissa. Now here we are with these rallies. You're calling them popularization rallies for BBI. At the end of all these rallies, will you have a BBI task force? What would be the outcome of that? And how do you take the country forward after dividing them so much, polarizing them so much? How will you move them forward in an agreeable fashion?
Sam, the BBI task force exists and ably chaired by Senator Yusuf Haji. There is the political aspect and the technical aspect to it. The technical approach is that the task force is receiving memoranda at KICC. And we saw last week Musalia Mudavadi presented himself before the task force and several other stakeholders. I met student leaders from the University of Nairobi, and they were asking how they could be part of that process, and we advised them on how to go about it. So there's a lot of submission of memoranda going on at KICC. On Saturdays and weekends, you'll find the politicians going out to talk to the people who elected them. Because we've said we want this to be a people-driven exercise, not something that starts at KICC and is midwifed at KICC and ends there. Now, we've seen people who tend to have a different view to what has been put in the draft. First of all, let's not expect that we are always going to agree on everything. And that is why certain issues are taken to a referendum. The Brexit referendum carried the day with a very narrow minority, but it bound all the English, or it bound everyone in Britain to implement its recommendations. So let's not imagine that there will be a weekend when Sankok and I will agree on everything. We could agree on a few things, but not on everything.
But do you have to polarize?
But in terms of inclusivity, and Mheshimiwa Ngunjiri knows, my own brother is an MCA in Nakuru, right in the center of the town. You cannot carve out zones and say that these zones, as far as leadership is concerned, is reserved for certain people.
Right.
Senator Ledamo Lekina is my colleague. We sit with him in the same committee, and he's a personal friend. And I've listened to him very carefully. Senator Ledamo Lekina talks about land use policy or spatial planning. If you look at these Ma counties, Laikipia, Baringo, Samburu, all over, Sankok has just said even Nairobi is Ma geography. Even Nyeri is Ma geography, because the name, the word Nyeri comes from, is a derivation of a Maasai word. Even those of us who live in Nyanza, where I live today, in Lambwe Valley, it used to be grazing ground for the Maasai.
Right.
So even Nairobi and great swaths of land in this country was Ma. But that was historical. What we need to deal with today is not even that settler who has bought half an acre of land in Narok. It's not even that guy who has bought an eighth in Kajiado, because almost every other Nairobian or Kenyan is owning land in Kiserian or Kajiado or Ngong.
So what is the
For me, the bigger problem are the big ranches, the conservancies. You find one individual has been granted 40,000 acres of land. What is he doing there? He's rearing animals, and when the Maasai
herdsmen... But that's what your fellow senator is trying to protect. That's what your fellow senator is trying to protect, by saying the indigenous community, certain things, be it the land and the use of it, should just belong to the Ma community.
No, the point is we need to have a clearly defined land use policy or a spatial plan, so that even if you're going to set up conservancies, there also has to be an element of the local community benefiting from it. In the last parliament... Senator,
now that you raised that issue, I believe there are 5 laws that are connected to land issues, including the Community Land Act. Are you certain that all these laws that we have in place do not address these concerns that these people have? Do you need a BBI to fix them?
We have very good legislation, but implementation becomes a problem. And that is where the challenge goes back to the executive. I wanted to remind you that in the last parliament, Ngunjiri and I were in a very important committee. It was a joint parliamentary committee on national cohesion and integration. And we went around the country. And I do recall there's a time we even went to the areas of Laikipia, the areas of Marsabit, where there were clashes. And a lot of the clashes were arising from issues to do with land, where pastoralists are not allowed to get into these conservancies. Where when pastoralists take their cows into the conservancies, they are either shot or they are jailed. These are real issues. For me, the problem is not that a Luo has gone and bought land in Narok or a Kikuyu has gone and bought land in Narok. The bigger problem are the huge ranches that still remain in the hands of individuals, depriving communities of their ancestral and traditional rights to those lands.
Gentlemen, we need to move our focus to Garissa, but before we do that, Honorable Ngunjiri, here's the thing. Kirinyaga Governor Anne Waiguru attended this BBI rally in Narok. She said that she wants that the executive should be expanded for inclusivity, more so for gender sensitivity, to give women an opportunity to exploit it at that level. Ole Sankok, when we began, said that the DP or vice president deciding on which format we do use should be a woman, the other position should be given to a
Because the affirmative action groups are 3.
I hear you.
So women should not only say that they are the only ones.
Yes, and I was talking about that. People living with disabilities, young people and women.
Yes.
But at that position, at that executive position,
yes.
How will BBI make sure that people living with disabilities, women, are able to exploit the political opportunities at the executive? How will BBI do that?
You see, for somebody like me, because of my age, I'm trying to observe, because this issue of BBI, if you are a clever person and you go back to the Bible, you will be able to study what is going on. And there must be some things you'll be able to know. Tribalism, opportunity, hypocrisy. You'll be able to see so many things on it. And it is good when you see after people talking, you'll be able to understand what is going on and what is our problem. Because like now, there's hypocrisy of saying, and I agree with the presenter what he's saying, when they are in Narok, the people who have that big land, why don't they mention them and say the land we have problem, It is Suswa, it is what, it is, just mention.
They mentioned Kajwang.
Yeah, they mentioned Kajwang. Who is the owner of Kajwang?
You tell us.
Yeah. I don't know. That's what they should do, the research, and come and tell us who is the owner of the Kajwang.
So how does all this propel people living with disabilities, women and young people?
That's good, the question you're asking. We cannot fit everywhere in the leadership and everything, and we start classifying like that, saying, I'm a Kikuyu, I'm a Luo, I'm what, we must be in the government. Like now, the issue which is going on is seeing maybe the position, 5 positions, how can we add 5 tribes in those positions?
What tribe?
You just listen. Now, the Somalis are also coming. They're going to be a big tribe because the way they say their lifestyle. Now, are we going to repeat another constitution again? We had another, and we know we are about 45, 47. What are we going to do after that? Second, you see this thing to make people to understand many things. Sangok, we are in the same party. But you see, there are some things we are not agreeing.
Yeah.
When we say that we divide with the acreage or the distant, surely, let me ask you, in my constituency, I have 45 primary school. I have 8 secondary school. If you go, let me give just an example, which maybe is near Nakuru. Arama's constituency, he has 9 secondary school. He has 13 primary school. Then when we are given the CDF the same, surely, is it being fair on the cake for all of us? So when we reach there, I agree with the leader what he's saying. This cake, let's be put on the table. We divide equally, and that's what we are saying.
And you believe BBI is going to do that, given it's already causing division?
Let me tell you, that's what I'm telling you. We are just being hypocrisy on what we are saying. Let me tell you, what we are saying is not what we are doing.
So every weekend
That's
you guys are standing up and telling Kenyans to take on BBI, but even you don't believe in it yourselves.
I don't know what is BBI, because in this country, we are adding other things on other things. Let me tell you, we have CID, which was working very well. It is somewhere, people thought that Moi is using CID in many things. We went anti-corruption. Anti-corruption now also, we have left anti-corruption. Now we are trying to create another thing again, thinking when we create something new, it will help us. Let me tell you, anti-corruption, they are getting investigated from the CID. Why could we not strengthen the CID or make laws to strengthen that? So we are putting in top of each and everything, thinking we are solving the problem.
All right, you introduced a new dimension. We'll get to that after the break.
We'll take a commercial break, so we allow you